Is your team ready to go?
Don, we have an echo.
I'm noticing that. I'm going to log out and log back in just in case it's me.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Okay, that should be better. Okay, Lynn, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, we're streaming and we're recording.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate you spending your Thursday afternoon here with us. So I'm John Floyd, Senior Planner here with the West Linn Planning Department. Some of you I know in person, some of you only virtually, but it's nice to see everyone. So I think we're going to start out with a round of introductions. If anyone has any questions, just pipe in and say something. But I think that's me. I'm the city staff person who's project managing this restart of the West Linn Waterfront planning project. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adrian to introduce the consultant team working on this.
Yeah, hi everyone. Adrian Whitty. I'm a senior engineer with Tool Design and the consultant project manager on this project. And I'll have Anju introduce herself next.
Hi everyone, my name's Anju. I'm an urban designer and planner with Tool Design.
Perhaps the Leyland team can go next. David.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm David Fisk. I'm an associate with Linn Consulting Group. We're based here in Portland. We're working, we're market and real estate consultants, and that's sort of the angle we're bringing to the consultant team here. So nice to meet you all.
And I don't see Rachel or Jeremy from Mayor Reed, but we also have Mayor Reed, who is an urban design landscape architectural firm here in town as well. John, do you want to take the intros from here?
Absolutely. So since it's such a large group, I think I'll just call on people individually, if that's okay, to introduce themselves. And I'll do this in the order I see you on my screen. So don't take offense if you're first, last, or in the middle. So Andrew Mason.
Andrew Mason, Executive Director with Willamette Falls Trust.
Andrew. And Councillor Baumgartner.
Hello, everyone. I am Mary Baumgartner, currently serving as Council President from the West Linn City Council. So happy we're all here.
Councillor. And then Britta Mansfield.
Hi all, I'm Britta Mansfield. I'm the Executive Director of the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area Coalition.
Perfect. Thank you, Britta. And Chris Boston.
I'm Chris Boston. I'm the owner of the Bridgefront Apartments, the historic apartments right next to the Oregon City Bridge.
Thank you, Chris. Let's see here. Greg Smith.
I'm the co-chair of the Sustainability Advisory Board, and I'm a resident along Volp Street down next to the waterfront, adjacent to Willamette Park.
Excellent. Thank you. And James Manning. Oh, you're muted.
Right. Hi, I'm James Manning. I'm on the Historic Review Board for the City of West Linn.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Jeff. Oh, you're muted. I think you're muted there, Jeff.
Sorry about that. I'm Jeff Cohn. I'm listed on the roster as River Access and Recreation. I'm a member of Tualatin River Keepers, Willamette River Keepers. I do volunteer work for both groups, and I also do volunteer work for the Parks Department, doing park restoration events.
Jeff Cohn. Jim Edwards.
Hi, I'm Jim Edwards. I'm a retired
executive with a multiple development companies in Portland. And I'm also a board member of the Willamette Falls Heritage Foundation. And I was associated with the Vancouver Waterfront for 5 years, from the time they broke ground on their first building until 2020. So I've been a resident of West Linn for 28 years.
Thank you, Jim. Kathy Hallecky.
Excuse me, I'm Kathy Hallecky, and I'm president of the Willamette Neighborhood Association.
Kathy. Julie Hernandez.
I am Julie Hernandez, Local Government Affairs for PGE.
Julie. Kevin Johnson.
I'm Kevin Johnson, principal at GBD Architects, and here representing the land that is owned by Belgravia on the uplands above the mill, actually down to some of the mill area. And then also want to note that GBD also does work for Confederate Tribes Grand Run on the Willamette Falls site over across the river in Oregon City.
Thank you, Kevin. Bob McCarthy.
Is it possible, John, for our names to stay on the photos that are up? It would be nice to be able to get to link the name with the face. If you could do that.
I think if you hover your, at least on my end, if I hover my mouse over the face, the name pops up.
I see. My name is Bob McCarthy. I'm president of the Bolton Neighborhood Association, chair of the Committee for Citizen Involvement, and a semi-retired consultant in the management of change and management of organizations. It's nice to be.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, Tom Wadden.
Yeah, I am a 23-year-old, sorry, 23-year Bolton, West Linn Bolton resident. I'm on the Historical Review Board, and I'm in my first year on the Planning Commission for West Linn. Got an architectural background, and I'm excited for this group. I'm amazed. This is awesome.
Tom, there's someone on here whose phone number ends in 47. I'm not
it might be me, but Bob Schultz.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for joining. Can you introduce your relationship to the West Linn Waterfront?
Sure. So I've been a resident for over 20 years in West Linn. I'm an architect, real estate developer, a social entrepreneur, and Imagineer. And I own 36 acres in the West Linn Waterfront District. It's the old Publisher's Pond. I've been working on the project very quietly and discreetly since 2018, when Gail Holmes, some of you might remember, who at that time was the president of the Willamette Neighborhood Association and the president of the West Linn Neighborhood Association's President's Club, and sat on the West Linn Economic Development Committee, asked me to buy the site. So it was purchased in August of 2020. I've got a stellar team assembled for the project. A large number of them are homegrown. They're local West Linn residents, the least of which has been in the community for as long as I have. Some of them, let's go back 65 years. We know West Linn pretty well. And I use an organic process to the entitlement process, hallmarked by a bottoms-up approach to where every voice in the community will be heard. And then I work really hard at listening to the people, giving them a voice, and then working really hard to try to address their critical concerns. When I do this right, and this isn't the first time to the show for me, when I do this right, I develop a large constituency voting block for the project. That site that I have is highly developable. But on a technical scale, say a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is really, really difficult. This is a 15, but we've got this
I would
dialed
say
in.
so, Bob. Sorry to cut you off here. Your thoughts are really valuable, but let's save those for the end since we have a lot on the agenda today. But I'd
Sorry
like to
about that.
agendize your thoughts later if that's okay. So
Yeah, sorry about that.
no, it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I want to be efficient with people's time here. They've taken time in their afternoon. So.
I'm not feeling too well today either. That's why I'm calling in. I'm under doctor's care, so I might just put you on mute for now and just listen.
That sounds good. Thanks for the introduction.
Sure, bye.
Yeah, and then the final person is Mark Lindley.
Afternoon. I apologize, my camera is not working. Sometimes our security protocols don't like WebEx for some reason. I'm with PGE, and I'm lead up PG's property acquisitions and dispositions, and I've been associated with PGE's Willamette Falls property for 22 years.
Thank you, Mark.
Talk to a number of you routinely that are on the call.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anyone else I missed? Didn't have a chance to introduce themselves. Nope. Okay. Well, now that we've all been introduced, I just want to give a quick overview of the role of the working group. And then for city rules, we have to elect a chair to manage this. So while I'm going over the basic introductions, think about if you want to serve or if you think there's a good person in the group who would be a good chair to guide discussions. So I think just last night I shared some documents, just a few things. One document looks like this. It's the group charter and purpose, as well as membership. Essentially, the working group is here to sort of inform the planning process from an early stage. What's happening right now is the city is restarting waterfront planning that started pre-pandemic. So a number of you joined in pre-pandemic outreach that was conducted about waterfront development. This work is a continuation of that. We're not starting over from scratch. So as Adrian will talk about in a little bit, we're actually working on a vision document based on that prior planning work. The working group's goal, purpose is to sort of provide feedback, discussion, and eventually make a recommendation to city leadership prior to entering into an official adoption process for a number of components. This will be the draft community vision, comprehensive plan and zoning map changes, potential development code changes, and then any final alignment options, TSP amendments, or financing recommendations at the end. So I reckon if you have a chance, you might just sort of reread the purpose of the group, and then also use it as a handy reminder of who your peers are on that. I think with that, we also just tried to adopt some meeting guidelines that I also provided. I think generally these are just recommendations on how to make the meetings more efficient. We're going to try and target the first Thursday of every month. Things can be moved around, but just as a standing meeting, that would help. We're not going to meet every month, but just for planning purposes, we wanted to use that. We just ask that people come prepared for the meetings, be willing to engage in discussion, and feel free to reach out at any time to city staff. Your comments are always welcome. And so, again, in terms of that's great in terms of that. If you have any questions about the meeting guidelines, just let me know in terms of that. And so I think just to be time efficient here, I think the next item would be best, unless there are any questions, would be best to move into election of a chair. So is there anyone who wants to put themselves forward to run the group? I know a few of you have chaired groups before, so I promise you staff will be here to run most of the agenda items. You know, this is just to help mediate discussion. Or someone could put forth a name as well and volunteer someone. Okay. Or some of you chairing too many committees right now?
I would put forth James Manning's name. If he's
Thank you, Mary.
Do you accept the nomination in terms of are you willing to serve if voted upon?
Yes, yes, I could. Yes.
Anyone else wish to put their name in the ring? So in that case, if everyone could just click the raise hand icon if you vote in favor of James Manning. Should be at the bottom right of your screen. Okay, James, it looks like you're overwhelmingly voted in. Congratulations. So,
Well, thank you very much.
yeah, your aides are being. Go ahead.
I said, Mary, is this where I give my speech, my acceptance speech, or?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, I'll turn it over to you. We just have a couple more items on the agenda. I'm not sure if you have a copy in front of you. But we're on item number 4.
All right, so the presentation and discussion of preliminary vision plan and development framework by the project consultant.
Great, thanks, James. I can take it from here. Congratulations on your appointment. So I'm going to have Anju share her screen. We just got a few slides to set the context of, and John gave some of this background already, but just wanted to set the context of the work that this master plan project will cover and the work that we're currently undertaking. And then I'll actually hand it over to Anju here soon to walk through in a little bit more detail some of the work and mapping and development framework that we've been preparing. So this was in the project working group membership and charter document that John shared before yesterday before the meeting. But essentially the goal of our project here is to complete a draft vision plan and then take that out for public and community engagement to verify that that plan has sort of broad community and stakeholder support. And then really get into the details of any sort of policy changes and updates that are needed on the city side to implement that vision into the future. And obviously you as the project working group and stakeholders in the area have a huge role to bring on this project, and we want to tap into your experience in order to make something that's meaningful and that will actually be able to materialize itself in the future. On the next slide, just a quick overview of the project area. So the waterfront runs from where the 205 crossing of the river occurs all the way down to the ponds that Bob was talking about. The area's been broken into 3 districts. So going from downriver to upriver, the historic City Hall district, the Cultural and Industrial Heritage District, and the Pond Redevelopment District. And so you'll hear us referring to those districts as we go through some of this work. Each of those areas is, of course, extremely unique in terms of its access or its topography or its infrastructure, its current zoning. And so each one of them also has a variety of different challenges, constraints, and opportunities that we'll be working through. And you'll see some of that in our work that we present here today. On the next slide, just another recognition of what John said, that we realized that this project is a restart of a lot of previous work. That includes, over 40 years of planning in the project area. It also includes the previous community engagement and effort that the city had started to undertake from 2016 to 2019 before the pandemic. And we're going to be using a lot of the lessons and findings that we heard out of that community and stakeholder engagement process to bring into this initial vision document. And then we want to obviously take that back out to the public to see if those things hold true. And I'm just showing on the screen here a few of the project guidelines that came out of that process in 2019. And then, of course, also a lot of you all and the property owners and stakeholders in the area have also been conducting various work and planning efforts on your various pieces of the project area. So we want to make sure that we're representing those efforts in the vision plan that we're creating. And for background, we have started reaching out to some of the major property owners and stakeholders to get more specific information about their planning and also, the work that's happened on their sites over the course of the last few years. So that'll all be starting to roll into that vision plan. On the next slide, just wanted to really go over at a high level what our project schedule looks like. So the master plan project is really, we've got defined 3 phases for the project. So this first phase that's occurring over fall and winter, we're currently in the vision plan stage. And so we'll be working with you to refine a draft of a vision plan that we can take out to the public for comment in the new year. And once we have that public comment and a refined vision plan, we'll start the work of the next 2 phases, which is really developing out the nuts and bolts for how the plan could materialize and in particular, what sort of policy and legislative adoption changes need to happen to bring that vision to fruition. And then the last thing I want to say about on the next slide about what we're presenting today. So we're in that vision plan phase. And so our intention is to bring a preliminary draft of that vision back to this group in early December at our next meeting. And in that vision plan, there'll be 3 sort of large sections to that document. One will be background that sort of sets the context and introduces some of the themes and guiding principles that were found from the previous engagement process. There'll be a section on development framework, which really looks at the physical constraints, some of the opportunity areas, and some of the potential development areas in the project area. And that's what we'll focus on in our discussion today. And then the last section will be what we'll work on coming out of this meeting, which is to really start to develop concept ideas for the area. And that could look at anything from public access and amenity opportunities, land use options and potential changes to transportation and access. And so that'll all get put together into this vision plan that you'll see coming into the next meeting. So just to clarify today, we're really just focused on that sort of development framework section. And maybe with that, I'll turn this over to Anju to take things from here.
Hey, thanks, Adrian. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Any questions before we move on to the kind of next set of slides? Okay, great. Well, I will jump right into it. So again, like Adrian said, we're looking at the kind of in progress draft spreads that will comprise the development framework of the vision plan. So this is the first spread of that. So what's shown here is a kind of explanation of what a development framework really is and what it does, which is to identify and prioritize key public realm amenities. And by that, I mean things like streets, trails, cultural and historic assets, which kind of all work together to build a foundation for an overall vision for the site. Part of the development framework also shows ongoing work and potential areas for new development too. So those are part of the framework. And again, this is all sort of like a high level look and a really kind of conceptual framework that acts as a sort of diagrammatic site plan for the next level of building out options and real ideas. So I wanted to start by just doing a kind of high-level discussion of existing conditions on the site. This map is showing existing ownership. A lot of you guys see your own parcels here. As you can see, the majority of the site is privately owned, with Portland General Electric as the primary landowner. There's a handful of parcels owned by the city on the north end of the site. And really, you know, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. There's a big mix of ownership, and that really points to a need for a collaborative and consensus-based approach for the visioning of this site, which is why it's so great that this working group is together and has such a broad cross-section of stakeholders of the site. So this map is showing the land use designations from the West Linn Comprehensive Plan. The site is currently designated primarily for industrial use, with some medium density and commercial areas. And again, as already was discussed, as part of this plan, we'll really be looking at where and if there's need for new designations to accommodate a wider variety of land uses and development options moving forward. So some key physical constraints on the site, the primary one really being the floodplain. Some real challenges here related to complexity and cost of construction, regulatory hurdles, but you know, some opportunities really afforded by the floodplain as well. The fact that there is so much biodiversity on the site and a real kind of potential for environmental restoration that can be addressed as part of this master planning effort. Steep slopes is another kind of key physical constraint. Again, a cost and complexity related to construction and excavation, erosion risk, accessibility issues, and environmental impacts are all things we'll be taking into consideration as we work through this planning process. But again, some opportunities afforded by this topography. Vistas and views of the river are certainly a huge characteristic of the site and a huge draw to the site today. And, you know, possibly a potential for creative and unique kinds of construction and architecture as well. So that's a really kind of high level look at existing conditions. And now we want to get into some of the key ideas, assets, and kind of foundational existing public realm infrastructure of the site that is going to contribute to the kind of this overall development framework. And the first of which being a multimodal greenway. So the idea here is really building off the Willamette Falls Drive streetscape project. The greenway is imagined to serve as sort of the central spine for new riverfront development, and will also connect new developments to the rest of West Linn. And we may think about programming this greenway in some ways, maybe with scenic overlooks, rest areas. There may be opportunities for creative wayfinding elements, all things we'll be thinking through. With that, connections and gateways at existing key intersections off and along Willamette Falls Drive can be capitalized on to establish a sort of sense of place and arrival to the riverfront. Many of these existing gateways are at some of the higher elevations of the site, so really sort of capitalizing on views to create that experience of arrival. As part of the process, we'll also be looking at the potential for additional connections and gateways, particularly at the southern side of the riverfront site. Today, it's relatively isolated from the rest of the site and the city. So we'll be looking at that as well. We've also seen concept plans for 2 preferred alignments for the pedestrian bike bridge across the river, the ODOT plans. And we'll also be incorporating those studies and considering them as part of a sort of overall circulation network for the riverfront. So a continuous riverfront trail is something that's been kind of discussed, and we've heard there's been support and a real desire for from the Westland community. Pieces of the trail have been under study, pieces exist. And I think the broader vision for this is really a trail that not only gives the public access to the shoreline and river's edge, but can also really be leveraged as a natural buffer for new development. And really kind of this new trail functioning within a larger regional trail system, which is already really quite robust and continues to grow today. Existing geographic zones are identified here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just the idea here to really kind of leverage and elevate and work with, not against, the existing topography and landforms of the site, which not only will kind of be true to the character and topography of the site, but also will hopefully help minimize environmental impacts by just sort of embracing the existing landforms and identity across the site. So looking a little bit at natural assets on the site, really sort of a goal here to preserve natural assets even in the presence of development. Here we're showing, I'm sure everyone, a lot of folks on this call are really familiar with sort of some of these existing assets, but calling out here, there's several natural creeks, undeveloped wooded areas and wetlands across the site that should really be kind of a part of this development framework and really elevated as part of this plan. Cultural and historic infrastructure, Willamette Falls and Historic City Hall are significant assets to the site. Again, should be central to kind of the identity of a vision for the riverfront. And as part of the larger process, we'll also be coordinating with plans for the intertribal public access project, which is called out here, located on the island next to the falls. Really exciting ideas there for public walkways, interpretive sites, cultural events, things like that. So some real efforts that I think are already aligning into kind of a larger vision for the riverfront. Some really good thinking that's already been done. So what this all leads to is a framework for new development that really prioritizes public, natural, and cultural assets and preserves and elevates what's really unique about the riverfront today. So we're going to keep sort of building this out. Again, these are draft slides. This is a draft framework diagram that you're seeing on the screen as we continue to talk to stakeholders and property owners on the site. This will become more refined, but just to give you a sense of sort of where we're at and our thinking thus far, just wanted to go through these slides with you today. Are there any questions off the bat?
Will we be able to get this slide deck emailed afterwards?
Yes, we'll send this out to the group. And I think I know this is the first time that this is being presented to folks, so I think take your time to go through it, and in particular, if there are things related to these topic areas that we might have missed or that we need more information on, feel free to send those comments along as well. Any other questions on?
Yes, I have a question backing up a little bit, and it's for Julie Hernandez. Julie, do you represent Portland General Electric in this process?
Myself and also Mark Lindley is on this meeting.
And so, Mark, do you speak for PGE? If we're going to have a collaborative process here, PGE has to be an active and a full member. So that's my question.
I think we'll have to check internally to see who's going to have the authorization to speak on behalf of PGE.
I'm sorry, Mark, could you repeat that?
We're going to have to check internally to see who's going to have the authorization to speak on behalf of PGE. We can certainly share information, but neither Julie or I are the ultimate decision maker.
So I'm still not clear. Will you be able to get that authorization so that if we reach an agreement about how we want to proceed, that PGE is on board with that?
We'll have to figure out the process of how we're going to deal with that. It hasn't been thought. We haven't gone through that process yet. So
Okay.
I don't know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, it would seem to be very important that we have PGE as an active full member. So thanks.
So I think, Bob, that's a good segue here. I think I received an inquiry last night by a member asking if they could discuss the contents of this meeting with the broader community. I said, absolutely, that's the point. I think the working group is intended to represent multiple different stakeholder interests. And I think individual members can't speak for their, for the entirety of their interest necessarily. But this is a tool to sort of, for individual people to sort of come together and provide input, discuss topics, and ultimately provide recommendations. But I think we're all everyone here is a representative of a larger entity. And so I think the working group doesn't have ultimate authority on adoption of this. And so I just want to make that clear. This is just an advisory body. I think you've participated in these working groups before, I think. I just wanted to make that clear for the group as well. So I think in terms of your question to PG, did you have a specific concern in mind or other goal here in terms of moving forward?
I think we could come to an agreement and PGE doesn't want to participate, or they have a different agenda, in which case our time would be wasted. So I think PGE has to be an active participant in this so that what recommendations we come to are ones that they are participating in and agree with. They are the major landholders. So if they're not in, our work could be for naught.
And Robert, maybe just
I
think, Anjali had sort of highlighted this earlier, is that, there's a lot of property owners to coordinate with here. And part of our job is actually starting to reach out to those property owners and understand, their constraints, their plans, their process. So hopefully some of that coordination is happening in that way. Obviously recognizing, your point of the sort of, the overarching result needs to be supported, but hopefully we're getting that as we go on and representing those stakeholders in a way that's appropriate.
But also bear in mind that a lot of the PGE property is either within our FERC license boundary related to the generating facility there, or is property that is subject to approval by the Public Utility Commission. And neither one of those entities necessarily work very fast. So matching up the need to get those approvals along with the general timeline that was shared would kind of render that timeline pretty ambitious.
I want to break in here and
just a word
remind
of warning.
everyone, hold on, that if you're not speaking, you need to be on mute and to use the hand raise function to speak. So that way we won't have the feedback that we're getting. Thank you.
Greg, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question about like whether or not anyone is going to represent the paper company on this in this committee, because it seems like they're another significant property owner.
John, is that something you could respond
Yeah,
to?
so they aren't directly represented on here, and so you know, they have an existing facility here. I think we are you know, coordinating with the PGE, who does own the underlying property on this, but they are a major stakeholder that we will be consulting with going forward. But they were not added to the working group. It's always a struggle trying to figure out exactly how big of a group to make. So, but no, their interests are of concern, but they're not assigned to this group necessarily. But I've spoken to Brian at the mill, and he's aware of this project. So, were you advocating for their inclusion?
I've been on other city committees over the years, and they have been included and have oftentimes raised important concerns with regard to city plans. So it seems like it would make sense to give them an opportunity to have a voice on this group.
Thank you for that. We'll discuss that. So appreciate you raising that.
Mark, you've got your hand up.
I think Kevin has had his hand up for a while. I
Kevin's been.
people are not
Apologies.
seeing everyone on the screen, but just to point that out.
Nope, no worries. And thank you all. I'm already appreciating the group. I'm wondering, big picture on the study that's going to happen, is there a perspective of timelines to say, like in 5 years, 10 years? Is the ultimate goal here 50 years from now plan? What's the time frame within which we're trying to? We know it's really difficult site, so anything in 5 years is quite a reach. But what's your time frame? What you're looking at here?
That's a great question, Kevin. I think the vision plan is setting a long-term vision for the site, but as we start to get into what does that actually look like in terms of how that materializes, we will be breaking that down into, you know, what is more achievable in different increments and timelines. So we haven't defined specifically what those are, but as we start to talk with stakeholders, we are learning, of course, some of the timeline constraints on different things. So that will probably end up defining what some of our timeline boundaries are as we start to dive into the phasing. So thank you for asking that. Now, Mark.
Sure, I was just going to comment that PGE doesn't speak for the mill. They've Greg was correct. They've got some really unique perspectives on things, and things that might be innocuous to us could really affect and impact them. So I would suggest that they be included.
Great. Any other comments or questions on agenda item 4 before I turn it back to James? John? John, you might be muted.
Sorry, trying to be a good participant here and not muted. Keep you muted. So yeah, I think just logistically, Adrian, you said you were going to share these slides with the group. Please direct all comments on that to me, just so I can record them for the record, and then I can gather them and send them on to our consultant team. So I think just for ease of contact, send things to me and I can be the conduit to Adrian. So thank you. And I believe Councilor Baumgartner has her hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to restate, not everyone was on already when I mentioned at the very beginning that I feel strongly that there should be an environmental presence on this group, and am hoping that we could include a representative from Willamette Riverkeeper or an equivalent, well, and if there's any other environmental representative that could help inform and shape our vision. And I appreciated the mention that was made in the presentation about environmental restoration considerations. Thank you.
John, I'll assume you've noted that now. And then Jeff, you might have something related to that.
Oh, yes. So just during the course of this meeting, an email popped in from Travis Williams because I reached out to him last night, just letting him know I was on this group. And he said I won't read it or anything, but he is interested in what we discuss here. And he did mention also environmental issues. So I guess I would suggest that, and I asked, I guess, of you, John, can I give Travis your name and let you guys work out some way to include him?
Absolutely. So he and I have already corresponded. So we're going to connect. I attempted to reach out to them earlier this year, but obviously we didn't connect for one reason or another. So we're going to work out communication protocols because clearly we didn't connect early. But yes, I will follow up with Travis and then we'll work them into the group. So
great. Thank you.
There's no other questions or comments on that agenda item. James, with your permission, I can move on to the next agenda item, which is also me, which is about meeting 2 agenda and tasks. Andrew, would you just mind sharing your screen again to pop that last slide up? So as while we're doing that, as John mentioned, yeah, we'll send out a copy of the deck that we presented. And if you can provide your comments to John on that deck by this time next week, that would be much appreciated. And then beyond that, we, in the meantime, will be working on some of the concept plan, like updating the development framework and what you saw today, and then working more on the concept plans that will inform the rest of the vision plan. As I mentioned earlier, our intention is to get a preliminary draft of that to you by the 1st of December, which is the Friday before our next project working group meeting, which is the first Thursday of December on the 7th. Beyond that, we'll be looking to get your comments on that document about a week later, and then revise that draft vision plan by the end of the year to take out to public engagement in the new year. So that's sort of our immediate next steps and where we're tracking at the moment. So yeah, the next project working group meeting would be December the 7th, the first Thursday of December, and we'll present that draft vision plan at that point. Any questions on the immediate schedule? Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it back to you, James.
All right, thank you very much. This has been very informative, very a lot. Like somebody said, it was 40 years in the making, and I'd like to throw something out there that when my father was on city council for West Linn 40 years ago, this was being talked about. So I'm really looking forward to participating in this, and I just spent some time with my father last week. He's almost 92 years old, and told him about this, and he was quite excited. So, all right. With that, I guess any other public comments? Item number 6 on the agenda.
Sorry, Chair. Kathy Halicki has her hand raised. So.
My comment is we have 3 neighborhood associations on this board, allegedly, and that if you really want us to go out to our memberships and give them this information, your timeline of next week is not doable. Willamette happens to be one of those that meets every month, but most of the neighborhood associations meet every other month or so. So perhaps we might need to elongate that November 9th timeline.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kathy. So what we'll be bringing back in December, and then finalizing, I guess, at the end of December. The intention was to have that still be a draft vision that essentially collates a lot of the information that came out of the previous engagement from 2016 to 2019, and then anything that sort of the stakeholders, a lot of which are on this call, have been working on since that time. There'll still be a public process in the new year that'll be about 3 months long. And the intention is to go out to the neighborhood associations as well as do pop-up events and some other types of outreach to be able to really like workshop that vision plan with those groups, including your group. And so we're hoping that by still having that as a draft, that there's still an opportunity there to inform the project. Not sure if James is still on. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, my screen just went dead for a second, but
Okay.
I could read the comments scrolling across the bottom on the closed captioning, but it wouldn't do anything else. So
Nice.
all right. So I'm guessing that's the end of the public comments, and if so, we can adjourn at 13:53.
Thank you, everyone. This was a pleasure. I'll see you next month. So.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Take care.
Thanks.